Okay, in this one, we're going to talk about different situations when you need to take notes. And these are all a little bit different. And so you may find that your note-taking strategies change a little bit depending on the situation. So the first one is lecture. And the challenge with a lecture is that you have all this information coming at you and you can't stop it. It just comes and you're trying to get as much as you can and understand as much as you can as it comes at you. If your teacher is a good lecturer and has a PowerPoint or writes on the board, then you want to use that structure that your teacher is using in your notes as well. So when she has a heading, you put that heading in your notes and follow along with the evidence and examples underneath. One of the most important things to remember in the lecture situation is to leave a lot of white space on your paper, because in a lecture, you will almost always want to go back and add in more information. You will want to review and write down questions about things that you didn't understand or things that you want to check up on. So you want to skip lines, leave space along the left-hand margin so that you can fill in more later. The next one to talk about that can also be quite a fast style of notes is a video or film. And if you're watching this in class, you have to just go like a lecture, as quickly as you can. If you're at home, of course, you can pause, and I urge you to take the power that you have there to pause along the way and think a little bit more about what you're writing down. So lecture and film, those are both kind of super fast style note-taking. The third one is reading notes. And reading notes are very, very important. You have a little bit more time to think about what you're doing, but you want to take time at the very beginning to quickly skim the whole selection. So if you have a chapter to read, the best use of your time is to stop with any writing and first have a skim of the information and get a sense of how it's organized and what it's about. After you've skimmed it over, then you can make choices about where the important points are and, structure your notes accordingly. You have time to get a good hierarchy of ideas. We'll talk about that in another segment. And so you want to use your strategies to make sure that your notes are showing any hierarchy that might exist. Headings, evidence under a heading, vocabulary on the side, however you want to organize it, your notes should be a visual clue to yourself about the information that you read. Similar to lecture notes, with reading notes, you also want to leave plenty of space to add in later. So leave space along the left-hand margin, skip lines so that you can go in and add clarifying information and questions and connections later on. For all of these kinds of notes, one of the most important reasons that you're taking the notes is so that you can go back and relearn it later. And when you're reviewing your notes, you should be writing in the notes. If you're just looking over, flipping through your notebook, you're not doing the relearning that's necessary to do well in showing your understanding. So leave lots of white space. Write on one side of the paper only, not on the back as well. Leave space along the sides and in between so that you can go in and write more later on after you've learned more. There's another kind of notes to talk about, and this is not one that we usually think of, but that's math. And so there'll be some examples here for you to look at about how to take notes in math. but white space is extra important in math. And so I recommend dividing your paper right down the middle. On the right-hand side, you have your notes from the teacher, or you have the problem that's on the board. And then next to that, on the left side, you have explanation about what is going on in that problem. Explanation about how perhaps this concept in math might be useful. Explanation about the terms and how they can be applied. So leaving that white space there to make a connection between the problem and your action, your processing, all of that is very important. In math, you do not want to review for a test by having to redo all the problems. You want to have the problems there that you've practiced, and then right next to that problem, what was the thinking? What were the steps that you took? So talk with your math teacher if you don't have a handle on how to take notes in math class. But it's really an important time to take notes, and I think a lot of people forget that note-taking in math is a thing, a really important thing. The last place where we tend to take notes is for a research project. I'm not going to go into details about that for this particular lesson. So note-taking for research is pretty different from what we're talking about in these lessons, and I'm going to just put it to the side to explain in the context of a research project. Okay, so we've talked about lecture, film, reading, and math notes, and those are going to be the four that you'll see structures for in this lesson.